for February 21st, 2017 is now called to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Councilman Gallagher.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will ask everyone to please remain standing. That this is the portion of the meeting where we like to highlight the importance of including physical activity in your regular routine. That if you include about 30 minutes of some sort of physical activity every day in your daily regimen, it greatly reduces your risk towards chronic disease. And the management of chronic disease makes up a little over 80% of our healthcare spending across the country. So for our time together, try and encourage the utilization and the inclusion of this by doing a little bit of activity. And our activity this evening will be a simple one that you don't have to go so far as to call it a squat, but just simple knee bends. And so just kind of down and up. Now, if you want to go the extra mile and actually do kind of the whole spot, then just be careful doing so.
I can do it.
Yeah, see?
Mine are hurt.
One more time. Okay, very good. Thank you very much. You can go ahead and have a seat. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilman Galloway.
Here.
Councilman Fettiger.
Present.
Councilman Staples.
Here.
Councilman Rosinski.
Here.
Councilwoman Scheer.
Here.
Councilwoman Major. Here. Councilwoman Cutler. Present. All present.
All members of the council received a copy of the minutes from our last regularly held session, which was on February 6th. I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
So, second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further questions, additions, or deletions for the minutes?
Page 6.
Okay.
We just had a little typo. It says exited instead of excited.
Okay. It's in this third paragraph. Your yield trends still
Existed.
existed.
Other than that, we're gold.
Any other corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes as amended, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Then the minutes are approved. That takes us to public comment. Would anyone like to address the city council?
All right, Your Honor, before we have public comment, can I read my statement here? It's going to go along with it. No one comes out of the audience and starts an argument or trouble with the city council, mayor, city attorney, clerk, treasurer. Respect will be shown. After public comment, no one approaches to speak unless asked to do so. There will be no name calling among ourselves. Disagreement, yes, but everything will be handled with respect. If more information is needed by the council, then we are the ones who must pursue more information, like having special committee meetings. There are council meetings that we must conduct our business like the meetings are ours.
Can you provide a copy of that to the clerk treasurer afterwards?
Yes, and I even printed it so you can read it.
Thank you for that message, and it goes along nicely with, I think, our message that we have up here of civility counts. So with that in mind, would anyone like to address the city council?
Good evening. My name is Michael Rosenbaum. I reside at 1515 Indiana Avenue. I just have a few questions regarding the bond passage that was last meeting. I'm a numbers person, so for me, some of the numbers don't add up. So I just wanted to ask generally, I know $2 million was the bond. I know that it usually costs legal fees and other fees of about $150,000 to $200,000. We talked about $500,000 for a fire truck, and we talked about $900,000 for the sprinkler system. There's additional funds left over, and I was curious as to what those funds may be used for, whether it be to retire the bond early, or if there was something else that the funds were intended for that was not discussed at the last meeting. There was some discussion that there was additional work that needed to be done at the golf club but I wasn't sure if that was where it was going, so I'm just curious if
In response to that on the bond, I believe the fire truck is coming in without actually having the bids. They're expecting it somewhere around $640,000 on that. In their research on the irrigation system for Beechwood, it could be around 900 and some thousand. But until we actually get bids and get the cost on both of those, we won't know for sure what those costs are. You have the issuance cost on it, which you're correct is probably between 130 to 200,000 there, somewhere around there. There's a possibility it could leave around 200,000, give or take, depending on what the bids actually come in. At that time, then the administration would have to make a determination on the remaining funds. And those funds would be rather limited according to how the bond is written.
And also, I just want one more comment on it. You mentioned about the fire truck coming in at 640. There was constant conversation that part of that was going to be funded, so the net amount is the $500,000
That is.
So I thought that 100 plus would then add more to the 200 that you're talking about, possibly. And so I appreciate getting the answer, knowing that it has to be per the bond, and that administration has to review it before it can be spent.
Correct. It has to pertain to what's in the bond.
And the bond is limited to those areas.
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct.
Those areas being those, what, the golf
I
course?
believe it would be the golf course and the fire.
So,
You know, and until, like I said, until the bids come in, you really don't know what you're looking at.
so just so I'm clear, because the last council meeting was obviously had a lot going on, it was somewhat contentious, so has the council, and I'll use this phrase without any hostility, quote unquote, has the council given a blank check to the money that's left over being spent as the golf course or administration sees fit, or if there's 200,000 or whatever it is left over, do we come back to a finance committee meeting? I'm just asking because I want to be clear on how it works to be.
Yeah, if
Sure.
you look in the document that was adopted by the council, it specifically sets out what the funds can be used for. So the city council approved that the funds could be used for Beechwood and for the fire truck. I believe that it's the second whereas paragraph in the approved resolution from the last meeting.
Did we give unilateral discretion to?
Yes, because so in the document, that whereas paragraph states that that the bond is being given for the purposes of Beechwood and the ancillary cost to that for the project. So that was approved by the council at the last meeting.
And we of course could get a sense based on what's left over. I mean, to the degree a roof is only 25,000, like where the administration thinks it wants to use the money, right? Some sense.
I think the bids are coming up at redevelopment commission, that's tomorrow, right? Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not asking about that. I'm just asking.
That's on the irrigation, and I believe what Councilman Galloway is indicating is tomorrow when they open those bids for the irrigation system, we will have more of an idea how much we're looking at for that project.
So there could be some back and forth between the administration and the council on, depending on, are we surprised? Thank you, by the way, Councilman Galloway, I apologize for, if it comes up 850 versus, $1,050,000 or something, there can be potentially some discussion over, or if it's $300,000 left, we're done, we've done our work, and it's over with that.
We'll take a look and see what the numbers come in at, because we may not, it may be a moot point, because we got to know what we're talking about here, first of all. And then when we have an idea as to what those costs are going to need to be, then I think we'll have a better idea as to how they fit within the scope of what's outlined in the resolution. if there are excess costs and then projects that are within the scope of what the council adopted in the resolution, then I'll first discuss that with the respective department heads and see how that fits. And if then there are additional projects, then I can come back to the council and inform you about the progress.
Okay.
We'll know more when we see the bids tomorrow.
One comment on the bids though, and I don't claim to be an expert on irrigation systems. I'm doing a little bit of homework, but one of the items that did come up is the use of the computer, and at that point I would probably yield to Councilman Fettinger, who enlightened me a great deal on these systems, and I would venture to say he might have more knowledge than many in this area. Councilman?
Well, I talked to Mark after school today, and he and I went back and forth, and he gave me some assurances, just in the fact of part of this irrigation system is computer controlled, and you're looking at a 40-year lifespan, and you're not going to have a single computer that's going to be alive in that lifespan. You're probably going to go through 4 generations of operating system. And what happens if one software company goes out of business? There's only 2 manufacturers in the United States. And if you pick the wrong one, and 15 years down the road, that business goes belly up. We now have a system that has no controller. So it's basically just pipes in the ground. You can't actually make it function. So he reassured me that he's going to look at different factors like how compatible are the 2 manufacturers with each other. So if we need to make a flip-flop, we can flip-flop halfway through the lifespan, and it won't be a big incursion of cost. And then some other good news is, the system that we're purchasing comes with 5 years of support from the company. And then after that, there's a service contract option. So that may solve a lot of the problems, and the fact that as everything changes over time, and as computer systems change, that we'll be able to stay up on it at a relatively low cost per actual application. So yeah, Mark did a great job kind of putting some of my fears to rest.
I think those are important questions to ask, so I was glad that you took the opportunity to talk to them about it. It's a good point to bring up about what kind of software replacement plan is, and it's going to potentially be included in some of these things. So. Okay. All right, we're still in public comment. Would anyone else like to address the City Council this evening?
I will.
Please come forward and give your name and address.
My name is Chris Throgmorton. I live at 1607 J Street, Port, Indiana. First off, I have one question. Are either one of you immune from prosecution?
No, I don't believe we are immune from prosecution.
All right. At this time, I wish to inform you that I believe under IC 353314, any person, both of you are people, may arrest any other person if the other person committed a felony in his presence or has been committed, and he has probable cause to believe that the other person has committed that felony. According to this law, I'm supposed to turn you over to those officers because I believe that you have violated 18 United States Code, Chapter 13, Section 241, conspiracy to deprivate an individual of their civil rights. If you could please accompany those officers, and if you believe that I'm wrong,
On what grounds do you believe that we have committed these crimes?
That's really not my responsibility to tell you.
Well, at this
I
point,
believe
you're
that
placing us under arrest, and
Yes.
as I'm understanding it.
I'm supposed
So
to
I'm
give you
trying to
evidence and
understand.
file a report and all that, and I really don't have to explain anything to you other than you're under arrest.
I do believe that you do have to explain to...
You're the accused. I believe the process that I experienced here when I filed public access records request was the officers just took me to jail and I had to talk to a judge.
Okay.
I didn't get any sort of special treatment.
The officers of the law are
Right, who are
authorized
here to
remove
enforce the law and
individuals.
not interpret it.
Mr. Throgmorton, I'm explaining to you that officers of the law are authorized
Are you a lawyer?
do those things. I am not a lawyer. I am not.
Is there any reason why I should take your advice?
You are becoming disorderly in this conversation.
I'm just asking what makes you, why should I believe that this is credible information from you?
Why should I believe that I have?
She's an attorney, can we ask her?
You can ask me, and I'm going to tell you the same thing, that you have to provide evidence and you have to provide your statement as to what
fully
actions
prepared.
support your statement that there has been a law violated.
Should I do
You
that
have
right
not
now?
done that.
Okay. I attempted to file a complaint on the police department that should have been not taken by you because you represent the police department and the city. And it's a public accommodation complaint, and I believe you buried it in a police report that you took and made me sign a
I cannot
confidentiality
take
waiver.
police reports, Mr. Throckmorton. So
I know
that's
you don't. You're
inaccurate
supposed to take a
information.
complaint, so I don't know why
That's
you told me to go to
actually
the prosecutor.
inaccurate.
Would you like to see the paperwork that you provided me?
Mr. Throgmorton,
We don't
we're
need to
trying
do
to
that.
have a legally provided for meeting here this evening, and you have now come to.
I believe that you
interrupt
committed
business.
crimes, and you're telling me,
And
is
you
there some
provided
reason
no legal
why that I
authority here
don't?
this evening as to, you provided no factual basis, you presented no evidence that any crime has been committed.
On top of that, this body is not
Where
anybody
is
to
that in the
address
normal
any sort
process?
of questions like that.
Like, I can be prosecuted if it's not.
For
proven-
actions that you
Yeah,
committed.
and I'm fully aware of that. I have a suitcase full of evidence that I intend to have you prosecuted with. It's IC 353314,
You presented
Indiana
none of
Code.
that evidence this evening.
Well, here's the thing, is I don't really have to give you the evidence. That's not the law. It says that I have to turn you over to these
You
officers.
have proven no felony has been committed. You
I don't
read
need
the
to prove it.
statute that stated that there has to be evidence of a felony committed in your presence.
I'm to the understanding that
I'm sorry, Mr. Throckmorton, at this
That's
time,
not
you
a
are
trial.
no longer conducting business that this body can adjudicate or have any involvement with, so at this point, we are
So you
completed
refuse
with
it. Okay.
your public comment.
I
Thank
assume
you
since
for your
you've
time.
not been arrested, it's not a false arrest.
Did you go to the county prosecutor? If you have charges, you go to the county prosecutor.
Oh, I believe that they're using information. I provided a medical disclosure, and I believe that she has specifically used everything I provided in a medical disclosure, sensitive psychological information about me, to have the police intimidate and coerce me, which is also illegal. It's called prohibition against retaliation and coercion for having previously prior to lawful complaint, which I did with the Indiana Civil Rights Commission. I have tons of evidence, but nobody wants to see it. I'm making some very serious accusations against some very high-powered, higher-up people. I
What does the Civil
understand that.
Rights Commission say?
The Human Rights Commission?
Yeah.
What Human Rights Commission? Do you mean her? And,
He said
and-
civil
and
rights.
Civil Rights.
Oh, the Indiana Civil Rights Commission.
Yeah, what did they say?
Basically, everybody is telling me that since I've been arrested, it's now a criminal matter, which I believe that she somewhat manipulated that. There's no,
Of which you provided no evidence of this evening.
I have plenty of evidence.
Where?
Like, I don't want to give it to you. I believe that you're committing crimes and lying. I
I'm
believe
sorry,
you're
at this time, Mr.
conspiring to be
Throckmorton, you are no
deceptive.
longer
You've been asking for that.
Okay. All right. She was still asking me questions. I'd like to get my property. Please do not touch me. That's battery. So who are you and who are you?
Detective Bo.
Detective Bo.
No offense, if anybody's coming up to arrest me, you better have some charges. And I ain't gonna
You guys just offer? He can talk to the county prosecutor on March 3rd. That's when it's hearing for drug dealing. Is.
Okay, would anyone else like to address the city council this evening? Please come forward, give your name and address.
You're not gonna charge anybody.
No. Hi, everyone. I'm Mike Connor. I'm a Republican delegate in Fort. Over the last 3 years, I've had issues with my sidewalk being run over, and nothing's being done about it. And I want every one of you to see these pictures tonight. And I want to know what's going to be done about it. Because if my son gets ran over, then I'm going to have a big problem. This sidewalk corner was replaced 3 years ago when me and my wife bought our home. The home is at 201 Scott Street, which is Scott and Talbot. And the school bus has continuously ran over this corner. The snowplow has ruined the entire tree lawn. And the garbage truck and the recycling truck has smashed it again. And I've called the garbage truck company, I've called the recycling company. I've talked to members of the city council.
No, you have not talked.
I've talked to Mr. Burkham, and I've talked to Mr. Sabos. And I'm not getting anywhere. And I want everyone here tonight to see these photos and see what we can do to resolve this problem, because our city is spending hundreds of dollars fixing these sidewalk corners, and when things like this happen, we've just thrown our money away. And there's other issues with the tree lawns that aren't getting addressed. People are driving on them, parking on them, on Scott Street, because their cars are getting sideswiped. And so they park over the curb. This isn't getting resolved either. We have trees that have been in these tree lawns for 6 to 8 years. Tree stumps that should have been removed after the tree was cut down. And I understand that this isn't all your fault, because these tree stumps have been here a long time. But when these tree stumps reach a point of their rotting, why aren't they being removed? Why aren't these sidewalks being fixed? I want everybody to look at these pictures, and I want some feedback. I want people to come and see what this looks like, because it's awful. And I hope tonight that something can get resolved.
Well, at this point, I can provide a little bit of feedback for you, that the sidewalks are a major concern for the community, and that has certainly been something that we have been working towards addressing for a number of years now. And there are some challenges in having the finances to get as far as we'd like to with that. Now, in the process of that, we are required to follow a settlement. It's a response to a court proceedings that happened prior to our time here, and so we are working to fulfill that settlement. So in the context of which sidewalks and trying to address things, we're trying to work towards addressing that settlement. Now, we also adopted a program a couple of years ago that was a 50-50 matching program to provide opportunities for individuals to enter into a public-private partnership, essentially with the city, of going 50-50 on what those costs would be. That's something that we are looking to continue as a way of getting to more of our sidewalks, as we recognize that it's certainly a slow pace that we are having access to the funds to be able to address all of them. So that's certainly an interest area of this administration, and I'm sure of members of the council as well. If there are issues that are going on as far as vehicular traffic regularly tearing up some of the sidewalk, then I think the Traffic Commission would probably be very concerned about this. And
most of this isn't done by just cars. This is done by trucks. This is done by school buses. This is done by garbage trucks. I've called the garbage company, I've called the recycling company, and made them aware of this several times.
Well,
and there's only been one person that has resolved the problem. Garbage truck company has put a man on this route that does a very good job. He does not run over this corner. But if he takes off a day and there's a substitute driver, I guarantee you this sidewalk will be ran over.
That is a brand new handicap they put in.
Okay.
And I talked to Clay Turner about the recycling, and I talked to city engineer and the street department.
Okay.
So,
but here again, I'm coming here because I've talked to people about this in the past, and when I first addressed this, it was because I took photos and brought them here, and they were lost. Go figure. And the garbage truck actually was on the sidewalk. And that's why the sidewalk looks like this. Now, I'm not paying for a sidewalk when a garbage truck keeps running it over and breaking it. You know, this is, we have to come to some kind of resolution
What is the
here.
solution that you're looking for?
Well,
do you want
this
someone stationed on the
whole
sidewalk?
corner needs replaced. Now, in order for a school bus to the school bus is longer than a garbage truck. In order for them to make this corner, we may need to widen this road or something. Something has to give. Right now, as you can see in these photos, there's parking on this other side of the road. The street is too narrow for parking on that side of the road.
Which is why I suggested that the traffic commission could review
But this isn't solving the problem. This isn't solving this problem.
You have a multi-part problem, so you're probably going to have to
Well,
solve it.
basically,
You're probably going to have to solve it in multiple parts. I mean,
this is something that everybody needs to see and it needs to be addressed. And
I'm
again,
trying to offer you solutions to how it can be addressed. And
Well,
you're telling me that those won't work.
I talked to the garbage truck company and I talked to the recycling company. I get no response from the recycling company, but I did get a good response from the garbage truck company.
Okay.
And they did put a man on the route that does a very good job, doesn't run over the corners. But again, this right here, in this tree lawn, this is what the city snowplow did to my tree lawn on the side of my house.
Okay.
And I want everybody to see this. This is ridiculous.
Pass them pictures, bring them over here.
And I just want to see something done. I'm tired of seeing money wasted on a sidewalk corner, and now it's ruined 3 years later.
Sir, I'm on the first floor and I'm on the tree line and I haven't heard anything about this. We have contacted me.
Mr. Kirkham knows about it. Mr. Stavros knows about
But
it.
you heard from me.
Yeah, go ahead.
I like to get these
Approach.
to
Yeah.
you guys,
We can get it.
let you look at them. Feel free to stop by my home, my area, look at the tree lawns, look at the trees, look at the stumps. We have stumps that are over 8 years old. And again, I don't know.
Mr. Conner, I would encourage you to please visit the traffic commission.
Sure,
because
I
if there
will,
is-
but
Our next meeting is March 14th.
we have, I have neighbors that come to me and say, hey, this stump, it's been like this for 8 years. This sidewalk has been like this for 8 years. How much longer are we going to wait to fix this stuff?
And I understand your issues there.
I don't want my kids to get ran over because they are on the sidewalk a lot.
Okay.
And when,
Thank you for your comments this evening. We have your receipt of your pictures. I would encourage you to visit the traffic commission, which you've
I
just been
will.
informed of, and I'm sure that they'll be happy to evaluate.
but I hope we can get some of these problems resolved because we can't keep fixing things that are broken and break them again.
Thank you,
We
Mr.
can't
Conner.
afford it. Thank you again.
Would anyone else like to address the council this evening? Anyone else like to address the council? Any further public comment? Hearing none, then we'll go ahead and close the public comment, and which takes us to standing committee reports. And I would think that I would remember which side to begin on. I started there last time, so. Councilwoman Scher.
Nothing to report.
Okay. Councilwoman
I
Scher.
have a long one, sorry.
No, that's fine.
Park Board met last Wednesday, February 15th. Mitch Fikes received the Indiana Park and Recreation Association Distinguished Citizen Award at this meeting, as he was unable to attend the IPRA Awards of Excellence banquet in January. At that banquet, the award was accepted on his behalf by Park Superintendent Mark Schreiber. Mark stated that Mitch was selected from nominations across the state based upon his countless hours of volunteer hours spent on the construction of the Kesselman Park concession stand. The fees were waived again this year at Cummings Lodge for the Tour de La Porte to be held August 23rd through August 27th. Liz Savoya attended the meeting and reported that the tour raised just under $70,000 last year. There were 1,253 participants and 12 states were represented. So that's a pretty good job. The project, locations, and instruments for Joyful Noise, a musical parks project was approved. The project is being headed by Laura Cutler, Beth Schrader, and Mitch Fikes. Fundraising has begun as the project is currently looking at a $26,500 budget. Anyone that would like to donate to this project can contact the Office of Parkinson and Hinton. And then the Chessie Trail is on track for completion in the spring of 2018. City planner Beth Schrader reported that they are currently in the appraisal phase regarding right-of-way acquisitions sometime around the second week of March. She thinks that we'll know the price or the cost of those acquisitions. As
Councilman Galloway reported bids are out for the Beechwood irrigation projects. Any bids that were submitted will be open tomorrow at the RDC meeting. It's also time to renew the liquor license at Beechwood Golf Course. So Beechwood Golf Pro Kyle Cashmere asked permission to apply for a 3-way license as opposed to their 2-way license that they currently have. There's only a $250 difference, and so that was approved. Permission was granted for that. Approval was also given for the Park Department to put out an RFQ for solicitation of consultants regarding the 5-year master plan. The board also gave permission for Civic Director Brett Van Versey to get bids for resurfacing the Ridge Street parking lot at the Civic Auditorium. The resurfacing will be paid out of the Civic Non-Reverting Fund. And Bruce Johnson, a resident historian and an avid civic walker, donated $100 to the Civic's Non-Reverting Fund to purchase clocks for the auditorium. He wanted to know what time it was when he was walking. So 2 clocks were purchased and they were placed at both main entrances to the Civic. And then Mary Beth Lego's art class painted a total of 8 trash cans, which are going to be placed around the city this summer. 2 of them are currently in front of the park office, and they look amazing. They're so much fun. They're so much fun. The next park board meeting will be Wednesday, March 15th, 4:30 at the park office. And I'm finished.
All right. Well, and with that, I may, we may have a little bit of a target of opportunity here. I'm going to ask Mr. Ficus to come forward.
That's why he left.
Still, he can't hide. He's like, no. Mr. Ficus? Oh, here he comes. He's trying to hold on.
That's why he left.
I would like to ask you to come forward. That I think you should be recognized for having received an award from the state Indiana Parks and Rec Association of Citizen of the Year. This is across the entire state of Indiana of folks that have been involved in their communities that he was recognized, chosen and recognized due to his outstanding involvement with our park system and with the Rotary Club, then helping build a concession stand out at Kessling Ball Field. So I'd like to make sure that we have a chance to say thank you.
Well, it was a pleasure doing it. I really enjoyed it. We had a lot of good camaraderie with the fellow Rotarians that worked there, even your mother Elf. You know, we had to redo some of her paint job, but that's okay. But it was fun. We had a lot of fun doing it, and it's going to be a real asset to the community, and we're glad to be able to help. And we have our next project, which Laura is a great spokesman for. So we're going to get the Beautiful Noise Musical Parks, or Joyful Noise Musical Parks going, and that is a really exciting project, and we're starting fundraising on that. And we put a lot of work into it already. We raised a little bit of money already, so we're going to keep at it. So thank you very much.
Well, and so I just wanted to make sure that we not only had a chance to say thank you, but also for all of the incredible efforts that we're now getting to enjoy, but then for representing the city of La Porte in such an outstanding capacity, that to be selected from across the state as a Citizen of the Year, I think says a lot about our community. So thank you for all of your dedicated efforts in that manner as well. Councilman Cutler. Nothing to report at this time. Councilman Galloway.
Police Merit Commission met on the 14th. They're still talking about changes to a 5-member board. Has not been through the FOP yet. I was going to report on Corey Hurd being sworn in, but he quit already. So, but they go. BZA met the 14th. Starbucks was granted 2 variances, and La Porte High School was granted a variance. Hanley School was granted 2 variances. The Planning Commission is this Thursday, the 23rd at 6 o'clock right here. And Patton Cemetery met today, and they're going to take down 6 more trees. We have a lot of stumps cut out. And the next meeting is March 21st, 4:30 at Harris Precast on Vale Road.
Thank you. Councilman Petting?
The Human Rights Commission has granted Boston Middle School $500 for the Civility Counts Initiative. And for those that don't know what that is, it's a program that seeks to de-escalate conflicts and avoid violence and reduce bullying in the classroom. They also had a fair housing training, and it was held on February 16th, where basically they went over the Fair Housing Act, and then they're going to look for aspects of the act that could cause problems or for families or pop up here in town, and then we have a group that will be knowledgeable on how to resolve those conflicts. They created a Facebook page that you can go to and look for the fair housing training. You know, they try to record it so you can watch it online. Just look up the Human Rights Commission for report. Community Civility Counts is putting together a full slate of workshops for its second World Civility Day on April 13th. It is scheduled in Maryville at the Star Plaza. And there's some concern on the Commission of Legislation in Indianapolis. There's currently a bill, Senate Bill 558, and there's some provisions in the bill that could remove municipalities' freedom to choose land usage. And it was basically done so some towns have a rule on the books that say if you're going to build houses, then you have to build so much affordable housing to go with it. And the bill was looking to remove that, but they left the language so vague, it basically eliminates your BZA. Because you just can't make any restrictions. So it allows no restrictions. So they're really hoping that bill kind of dies. There's some other things in there that could be used that could really adversely affect children's lives. There's basically part of that same bill that says you can only have 2 children per bedroom. So if you're a family and you have a huge apartment, 1,500 square feet, the current memo on file basically says, you know, they take into account the size of the bedrooms, they take into account the circumstances of the family, but it didn't matter how big or little, it just said 2 kids per bedroom. So they were really worried if there became a situation where, you know, grandma needs to take over care of 2 grandchildren and she's in a 1 bedroom, she can't live there anymore. This law would basically force her to move out of her home. Or if you were a family of 3, say girls, 2, 4, and 6, and they were all small and you had a huge bedroom, you still couldn't live in a 2-bedroom apartment. You'd have to move and find a 3-bedroom because it made it cut and dry. You know, you could only have 2 kids and that's it. So as part of the Fair Housing Act, you know, that they just went through, and some of the other aspects of the commission, they were very worried about this proposed legislation. So it's in committee yet, it's not really taken off, and then so they're going to keep an eye on that one. And then their next meeting will be Thursday, March 16th at 5 p.m. The Airport Authority also met February 8th. They passed a resolution on the FAA regarding the use of airplane hangars for non-aeronautical use. The FAA got really twitchy about you not putting an airplane in the airplane hangar. And finally they backed off on that and said, if you have an airport that has an empty hangar, if you put forth an application, you may be allowed to rent that space out. So it's not just a building sitting there unused. But you still have to get permission from the FAA to do it. And so they submitted their proposal. I don't know if we actually have any hangars that are empty. I'm pretty sure everything has a purpose right now at our airport, but they wanted to do this in any way just to make sure that we're never stuck with property that can't be used in more than one way. I mean, you're always looking at a way that the city can generate some more income, the airport can generate more income to, you know, enhance its operation. Weston Excavating has cleared the property south of the airport, restoring FAA runway compliance, and soon it'll be prepped for farming. And the airport is looking at enhancing security of the gates and buildings of the property. I guess they've had a couple instances where people came in and just wandered about and then left, and they had no real reason to be in the airport. So they're starting to look at maybe providing a little more security, especially when there's only a single person in the building by themselves and things like that. And then anybody who would like to farm the airport property, contact the airport and submit your bid by March 1st. And That's all I had.
Thank you for your very thorough report. Councilman Staples?
Well, I certainly cannot top Councilman Fender, and I cannot top Councilwoman Maycheck.
Hey,
And Councilman Galloway stole my item, so I feel oppressed here, but I'm going to do my best. And to report, which has already been reported, at the Redevelopment Commission's meeting tomorrow. That's why I took some peek earlier with you during this meeting. The Redevelopment Commission's meeting February 22nd, tomorrow, 5:15 p.m. Dealing with, among other things, opening the bids for the golf course sprinkler.
Nice to know.
And otherwise dealing with the bond resolution, which is still being kicked around between different commissions. It goes back to the Redevelopment Commission tomorrow, and then we'll be at the Plan Commission on the 23rd. So it's an involved process, and they'll be dealing with a few other matters as well. But that is the highlight, I would say, of that meeting, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilman Luzinski?
The school board met on the 13th, and they updated, gave some updates on the building projects. They reported on the strategic planning as it relates to the 5-6 and 7-8 programming. They indicated that ads will be published starting in the next couple of weeks or over the next couple of weeks for the Hanley School project, and they will start the bid process for that on April 4th. As well as they approved the calendar for the 2017-2018 school year. And one thing that they try to highlight with that is that the calendar will try to kind of align itself with all the other schools in the area. So they kind of try to work together. Unfortunately, school, the amount of times that you have to get in, as well as school will be starting early August.
Okay. All right. Then that takes us to any other business that may come before the council. I have one item here that I was sent a message this afternoon by Councilman Staples asking for me to provide an apology to him and the entire council based on comments at the end of the last meeting having to do with the question that I had raised of his ability to expend funds or to incur expenses from a professional service of UMBAW, and then also regarding the timeline which was utilized for bringing forward a concern that he has with the zoning downtown and regarding the Plan Commission. I want to address a couple of these elements here. The first being the item that the council has its own $10,000 plus budget for outside consultants. That while that is certainly available to the council, there are 6 other members of the city council. So my point in bringing and raising the issue was to alert the other council members to the fact that one of the members of the council has chosen to then be able to expend funds to incur these expenses. I was not saying that this is not within your prerogative to do so. I was alerting the council to the fact that one of the 7 members of this body had chosen to do so, and saying that there may be a need to have a discussion about how those funds are incurred and what the decision-making process may be.
So there was nothing in your indication that was taking exception to that, or there was taking exception to that?
You have, just as you pointed out, you have the ability to do your research, and I appreciate that the council is wanting to do research. But if that research is costing the city money, and that's coming out of a budget that is allocated to 7 members of the city council, I believe that the other members of the council would want to have some awareness of that, and also then have a discussion about the process from which you may want to decide how you're determining when and where those funds are being expended.
I think that's a reasonable point. I'm a little surprised to have you necessarily inserting yourself into that. We do not necessarily insert ourselves into the spending of department heads in the city of La Porte or micromanage their spending or your spending, actually. So it seemed like the intent, as I perceived it coming from you at the end of the council meeting, was to subdue the council or otherwise micromanage the council. So I think that the broader point is reasonable, and I indicated that in my letter to you, which is that if the council members want to discuss how 2 or more council members have to decide, or by vote or something, how something is spent. But if your intent, and certainly is my concern, is to hamstring the council and its oversight function of your office, I take exception to that, and that is my perception about what you were perhaps trying to do at the last council meeting. I didn't see it as necessary for you to bring up my sending an email or two to UMBAW and calling UMBAW as something to draw attention to when it was in good faith to engage the very important checks and balances function with regard to a bond issuance that I feel that we were not fully, as we discussed at the last council meeting, included in. So that's where I was coming from on that.
Okay.
Do we need some members here? We need a few members here that...
Yeah, since this is brought up, that's a good idea. How would we handle that? So we have an idea.
Well, there's a lot of things we need to discuss. We could sit here for a half hour discussing 6 different items here. If we're going to discuss that, let's discuss everything on this list, because I'm not going to sit here.
No, when the mayor's done, then we can discuss our stuff. But
Okay.
do you want maybe 3 people, or do you want to try to contact all 7, or how do we want to do this? Before on this one.
What do you mean contact on 7? Because you can't be having a meeting outside of a public
Right.
meeting.
So
I think that
we contact 3.
I think what I would say, or I'd recommend, is that we know we have a $10,000 consulting budget, and that each of us, in good faith, if there's either contact one other council member or don't contact the council member, but be aware to some degree of what the costs are when you contact a third party or a consultant, and that we are aware of what our budget is, and that we maintain an awareness from Teresa about, okay, where is it at now? We're midway through the year, or we're not midway yet, and kind of keeping an eye on it and communicating with each other about our budget. But I just want to emphasize that it is our budget, and I'd like to be accorded the respect from the mayor's office that it is our budget and not something for you to oversee. That's what I would appreciate, and that's why I was asking for the apology.
The only thing as clerk treasurer that I would like to insert on that is how important it is that you do watch how much is in there. Because one of you could go get consulting, and if I'm paying those bills and the other one goes, another one goes, they may not know how much money is left in there. So that's the only thing that I'm concerned about.
Well, we have the same responsibility. We're different in one way. The department head ultimately has the control over his or her budget. We're 7 people, and so we have authorized amounts, but how these 7 people deal with something like that, it's certainly a legitimate question. But it's important that we not also be hamstrung at the same time. So I don't know the answer.
I have not at any point prevented you from having access to any of those funds. I simply pointed out to the other members of the council that this was a decision that was being made by one member, and thought that it should be raised in a public forum so that all 7 members could hear it at the same time.
Well, there's a lot of things that we brought up in a public forum, and we're going to start bringing them up, apparently, because you felt the need to bring that up at the last council meeting, which I found irritating and actually offensive.
Okay. We'll move on to some of the other items that are listed here, that it was written, we are not subordinate to the mayor, we are differently empowered and
I would appreciate, Mayor, that you would read the entire email rather than selecting items. If you're going to, I welcome you to read the entire. In fact, I'd be happy to read the entire email myself, but if you'd like to, rather than selecting items from it.
Simply in the interest of time, I was trying to address key points that I saw, but if you would prefer that I read the entire email, then I will certainly do so.
Yes, please.
It starts, Blair, in reflecting on things from the last council meeting, I think it would go a very long way towards restoring comity and trust if you could affirmatively represent to the council that you do indeed respect our position and our authority and our duties and our purpose even. Specifically, I would respectfully ask you to take the time at the beginning of tonight's meeting to apologize to both me and the entire council for your comments at the end of the last council meeting. Two things really stick in my craw. First, you're taking me to task for contacting Umbaugh and doing my own research when the council has its own $10,000 plus budget for outside consultants. Strikes me as a misguided effort to subvert the very checks and balances function of the council that you stated you greatly respect in our private phone call the Saturday prior. In addition, I have never seen you take a department head to task the way that you spent for the way they spend money at a public meeting from their own budget. The council needs to be able to do its own research and due diligence and not be hamstrung or shamed in its good faith efforts to engage in such work, including using money from our budget when deemed necessary and appropriate. If the council people, as a group, want to have a policy we set up between ourselves on how we spend our budget, it is between the members of the council to set such a policy and not the mayor to meddle in it. We are not subordinate to the mayor, we are differently empowered and accountable to the electorate directly. That having been said, it is also very important that both council and mayor, as a matter of professionalism, be accountable to each other. My hope is that, going forward, we will do better at offering such accountability to each other and that the council's role will not be demeaned or viewed as being a mere rubber stamp for the policy deciders. In return, I pledge to bring up concerns I have early and often in the process so that there is no risk of you, Becca, or others being blindsided. With regard to my introduction of an ordinance restricting electronic message boards, EMBs, in historic districts, I respectfully remind you that the role of legislator is a key differentiator between the position of councilman and mayor. In fact, no piece of legislation can be introduced by anyone, including the mayor, without the sponsorship of an individual city councilman. This is why you're taking me to task for introducing that EMB ordinance was so regrettable and disturbing on its face. You were shaming me for utilizing a power that, in fact, is exclusively according to the city council by state law. Furthermore, you're taking me to task for essentially wasting the time of the city planner when I was trying to be a good soldier and receive the input of someone with the relevant skill set was very dismaying. It's regrettable that you were apparently unaware of the course of dealing I had with Beth on this matter over a period of the last 6 months, and how I had been waiting patiently well beyond the point at which I had expected Beth to have the omnibus planning and zoning changes brought before the Plan Commission. When Beth could not give me a time frame for the introduction of those changes, I decided, fully within the prerogative of my role as councilman, to act. In my view, there is nothing for you to correct or criticize in that. It would be like me criticizing you for daring to approve claims at the Board of Works meeting. With all of this in mind, I hope you can understand why I would ask for your apology for representing that I was some kind of deviant renegade, defiant renegade, in introducing this ordinance, when I was only doing what I have strong conviction represents the long-term planning and zoning interests of the City of La Porte. Thank you for considering my request. If you would like to discuss this before tonight's meeting, I will be driving back from Michigan from about 1:30 to 4:30 Central, and should be available during that time range. If you could confirm your receipt of this email at least, I would appreciate it. Yeah. I would like to highlight that this was sent to me today at 12:45 p.m. I was given a window of 1:30 to 4:30 Central to address this prior to the meeting. I have many meetings that I have all day long. This was the first opportunity that I had to see it was about when I texted you shortly after 6 o'clock this evening. So this then speaks to the larger issue, which was what I was bringing up at the end of the meeting, that your timetable and others do not often coincide.
So there's no timetable there, I'm just providing that to you. I mean, that's...
You gave me a 3-hour window for which I could discuss any of this with you. That was what was provided here. And I didn't have that opportunity before I've been asked to provide an apology here.
Could have told me at the beginning of the meeting, we talk about this after the meeting. I would have said, fine.
At this point, I don't really know how I can win in any situation here. So that's why I chose to try and address this at a public meeting, because there is no right that I can do by you, apparently.
That's not true.
So,
I'm sorry you see it that way.
At this point, I think it's important for me to address the piece where you say we are not subordinate to the mayor. I'm not subordinate to the city council.
I'm sorry, could you read the next part of that?
We are differently empowered.
We are differently empowered.
We have different roles, but we are not differently
We are
empowered.
differently empowered. We are differently empowered.
We are both accountable to the electorate directly. I'm directly elected just as you are directly elected. I think that needs to be recognized by yourself.
I didn't say otherwise.
You act otherwise. You give me a window of which I can respond to
I
you.
wasn't giving you a window. I was providing something I thought was going to bring us together. And regarding a concern that I had around the council's being respected.
Respect is a two-way street, Councilman Stamos.
Well, you need to tell me how you don't feel respected. We can talk about that here or in private.
I would appreciate that you affording individuals the opportunity to address issues in a timely manner, which I do appreciate that you mentioned in here, that you pledge to bring up concerns that you have early and often in the process, so that there is no risk of us being blindsided. I do appreciate that.
Can you give me something to appreciate?
I consistently, in our conversations...
No. I'm not asking you to defend yourself. I'm asking you to give me something to appreciate, specifically. Regarding my two requests, with regard to me being a legislator, and you're accepting that it's okay if I legislate. Is it okay if I legislate?
I have at no point kept you from legislating.
I watched the council meeting this morning, and what you said at the end of the meeting, and you took exception to my legislating. I take exception to that. I just wondering if you might express some regret.
Did I prevent you or any actions from the council by you?
You couldn't prevent it, but you did try to shame it.
I brought up the time frame of which you choose to do business.
Yes, and why did
which
you?
everything is a crisis.
Why did you do that?
Because
I'm sorry.
this is a consistent pattern.
You just labeled me. You said everything's a crisis with me.
Yes.
That's not a fair characterization.
We are constantly given last-minute
We?
notice. Myself and other members of the staff are consistently given short time frames to be able to address questions or items that have come up. And then if any information is not provided, then it's somehow a decision that has been proactively made by the administration to keep information from you, when that is not the case.
I've expressed a desire on that ordinance to the city planner for 6 months.
Okay.
So for you to say that it's bringing up, and I've brought it up repeatedly, and I find that I have to bring it before the council. I'm sorry, I wanted to wait. Can you please give me your recommendations on how this should be phrased? So I just don't think your characterization is fair at all.
Well, and throughout this process, you have consistently...
I'm sorry, what process? This process meaning what?
This process of which we engage with one another in public meetings.
This process, you're speaking very broadly right now.
In the multiple meetings in which we interact, the last meeting at the joint session between the Redevelopment Commission and the City Council, meetings prior to that time period, consistently, it is minimal respect that is provided to myself and to the work that I do for this city.
I don't agree with that. I am sorry you feel that way, and I'm shocked you feel that way, because that's not how I feel about the council, but I'm glad you told me. I'm sorry you feel that way.
And in this, as I said, in these engagements, then you have consistently responded by saying, well, this is how I feel. I'm telling you that this is how I feel.
And I'm telling you I'm sorry you feel that way, and I appreciate you sharing that with me.
At this point, I would appreciate, just as you mentioned, that you have said that you're going to try and provide more notice in advance of things. I think that will help and go a long ways towards improving some of the interactions that you and I have had. As I have shared with you previously, I will do my utmost to provide you with as much information about various issues that may be coming before the council, about questions that you may be having, but I need time to be able to do that. And when you send me page-long emails with the opportunity of a 3-hour window prior to a public meeting to address this, of which maybe I interpreted it inaccurately, but that was how it was presented to me.
Well, I think you had 2 weeks to reflect on what you said at the end of the last council meeting as well. But I didn't necessarily expect you to say something at the beginning of this council meeting.
I don't think you have an appreciation for what it is that I do. I have a list list of 17 projects right now that I'm working on. Right at this minute, there are 17 separate issues that I'm trying to address, all of which are geared towards making a better community and a better world at large. So I would appreciate that if you could come at it of just understanding that my time is just as valuable as yours, and that there has been no intentional slight to you personally or to your role as a member of the City Council. There are separate, distinct roles for each of us to play, but we are each empowered by the same electorate.
Are we empowered by the state law?
We are each empowered by state
Are we
law.
empowered to be legislators?
Absolutely.
You are the executive, we are the legislators, correct?
Yes.
That means,
I have never said otherwise.
so you don't have any problem with my introducing that ordinance 2 weeks ago, even though you acted like you did?
I raised the issue of how you choose to use your time
I
and
don't know
how
what
you
that
choose.
means. Why are you attacking me for being a legislator? I resent that, and that's why I asked for an
I'm
apology.
not attacking you for being a legislator. I am bringing to the forefront the issue that I have had and that I have heard from members of the staff of challenges of being able to meet the timeframes of which you demand responses.
6 months. Sorry, Mayor.
We've had a few.
6 months. Sorry.
Real quick too. Whole Locker Drive.
Yeah.
Community garden, it was
Yeah,
never brought to the
exactly.
City Council.
Goes both ways.
Absolutely, it goes both ways. That's, I guess, all I'm trying to say
No,
here.
that's not what you're trying to say. What I perceive you're trying to say to the council members is, don't take the initiative on anything because I don't trust you. And that's my perception.
I'm sorry that you feel that way.
Thank you.
That's not what I'm trying to say because I do respect
Why did
the
you-
separate and distinct roles that each of us have.
Then
But I
why did
think
you say
it's
what you
important.
said about my introducing an ordinance?
I said it because of the time frame and how you choose to interact with individuals.
I don't know what that means. That's an attack, and that's an unfair
It's
attack.
not meant
And I
as an
resent that attack. How I choose to interface with individuals. I was very polite to Beth. I actually begged Beth. And a council person should not have to beg Beth, actually. A council person should not have to beg Beth.
Okay. I chose.
Would you please, I said to her, I'm worried about what will happen if this is not brought before the council. Could you please? I was very supplicative. I was very asking. I was very respectful.
I chose to bring to the forefront that you had decided that this was no longer working in the time frame of which you perceived to be appropriate.
Why did you need to bring that before the council? Why was that necessary? I was doing my job as I saw fit. You were criticizing that.
I also feel the need to defend the fact that we are working on all of these different things. And this has been communicated to
We
you.
want to do things too sometimes. Sometimes it's important that we want to independently introduce a council person. And that needs to be respected.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I wanted to address the items that you brought forward in this email, which I took to mean that you expected a response this evening, given the timeline that I was communicated in this
I
message.
didn't expect a response. I'm sorry if that was anything. I asked for an apology and that's all. And yes, I asked for it to be in the council meeting. But I'm sorry we didn't talk at the beginning because it wasn't that I expected a response. I asked for something. That's all it was. I just asked for something and that's all I was doing.
Can we go on to another thing?
Yes.
In my personal opinion, Mrs. Mezikar from the Park Board should give the City Council an apology. And in fact, I believe she should resign from the Park Board.
No. What did she do to the park board? What did she do to the park board?
It's what she did to the City Council. She just doesn't come down and start arguing with the City Council. That's when it all blew up. And I
think
believe,
she was just defending her. I rewatched the meeting and she asked if she could come up, and I think twice she asked, and then somebody over there said, yeah, give your opinion, and she did. I think she was, maybe her timing was off and she was a little heated, but I don't think that we need to ask for the resignation. I think that's
there was more problem than just that back there. I think it was City Attorney, do you have a few complaints about her?
I received some calls regarding her behavior from a councilman's wife and the councilman himself. And I received a message as far as her display of actions, not her words, other than that. But I did, and I spoke with the park department regarding that, and left it in their hands to appropriately address.
And let's just put it out there and make it clear. It was my wife. And at the same time, she's also a member of the Human Rights Commission, which is promoting this civility counts. And I will say, as a representative on an elected board, she completely violated everything and the essence of that code.
Okay, Mr. Mrzinski, under we had an opportunity to discuss this, and I was able to receive a state code regarding this matter. And what is necessary at this point is if there are concerns with behavior that upon specific written charges filed against that person, they can be considered. So what would need to happen at this point is there would have to be written charges filed, and then we can move forward with the process. So if anyone has questions regarding how we would like to go forward, I can address that. I did have the opportunity to get that together, and that would be the proper next step. So if you feel that that's necessary, if you can get me the documents, we can move forward with the appropriate actions.
And to be clear as well, as many of these comments were made outside of what were taking place here in the meeting. Much of this was into the back of the room. And I think the fact that she questioned the role of the council in setting the budget, I think is inappropriate. You know, like if we're looking for respect, I can just tell you that the engineering department gave me a stack of documents to look through over to select a contractor. I spent hours upon that. At this point in time, still have nothing in regard to the sprinkler system. As you indicated, Mayor, Councilman Fettinger had a good question to ask. These are some questions that we asked were logical, and we were ridiculed into the back of the room for questioning the action of a park board. That is an appointed position. Now, if that's going to be the case, then I'm going to question everything that's going to come out of the park board. You know, people ask, what is our city doing? You know, this past weekend was a terrible weekend for heroin overdoses. You know, we can't fix that problem overnight. But one of the things we can do is keep our, showing that some of the things we can do, keeping our kids into programs. You know, maybe I'm going to question everything we're doing on the park board. Maybe I'm going to start looking that under a microscope. You know, we had money in our budget, as you indicated, for this legal expense. Originally, when we came up, what was it, $20,000? And we've agreed to cut that down. Well, maybe into the next budget cycle, we're going to have to increase that. Some of our logical concerns came from people that raised questions with the golf course. I was a firm believer that we needed to finance some of these improvements. It's just, are we getting the most for our money? I think for the council to do due diligence, I think it was appropriate. There are other needs out there. And like I said, to be questioned for asking questions, that is our role. That's what we're doing.
And again, that's why I said, I think that at this point, given the concerns that you have, if you can put that into written format, then we can pass it on, we can follow the appropriate procedure, and I can provide that to you in an email.
That's not what he was saying. He was saying to be questioned for asking questions. That's what he was talking about.
But he was addressing the concerns that we had from the park board president asking questions, right? So if it's related to her asking questions,
I didn't hear that's what he was saying. I think you may have been appropriately interrupted.
I didn't interrupt him. I didn't interrupt him.
You responded when it seemed like he was directing it to the mayor. I'm not sure why you spoke.
Because I just told you why I spoke. Because
But you misdirected. You started responding about something unrelated to misdirect.
Then Mr. Mayor Rosinski can correct me if I am wrong in what I am assuming that he's talking about.
That could be the formal
He
procedure.
said questioned, he said question a question. How am I supposed to know that that's not related to what the conversation is? He never directed anything about the mayor. So why would I assume that he switched from talking about Mrs. Messacar to talking about the mayor when he didn't?
Because the last council meeting for 2 hours involved a fair amount of misdirection and interference with the council trying to debate, including you and the mayor letting Ms. Messacar come up to the podium and say she was going to be, let me finish, and she was going to be in favor of what you had to say. You didn't gavel her, you gaveled me, and that's wrong.
Absolutely
And
not.
that's wrong.
If you
And
watch,
that's what we're talking
and I think that's what Councilwoman Maycheck was discussing, that she rewatched the meeting, and I spoke about this, that there was a direct engagement of Ms. Messacar, and that was by yourself, Mr. Stagos, Councilman Stagos. So I just want to make sure you understand that when you're engaging a person in a conversation, then for you to then say, no,
That's
you
not
can't
my
talk.
recollection.
Okay.
That's not my recollection. I think you're mistaken. I'll watch it again.
No, she should have never come down. She should have been down and said, go sit down. We were talking to the...
And
And that could have been, but she did ask for
I would like
permission
to-
to speak. I mean, just in her defense, she did ask for permission to speak several times.
Yes, and who'd she ask for permission?
The mayor, and then I heard, I would think that it was your voice that go ahead. And
Yes, and go ahead, and she was trying to force herself on me,
Well, as
and you didn't interrupt.
Answering Joe's question.
Yeah, and if you would have heard the comments that were made in the back, you would
And I didn't.
And there were a lot of
I didn't
kids
hear
back there too.
I didn't hear anything. Donna clearly heard something that said she was telling if somebody was back with blood in her arms and
what I can respond to in question to how the meeting was conducted, one of my roles is to preside over the city council meetings. I don't remember who specifically it was who may have invited her up here. I probably was me. And so at this point, I did invite her up here out of deference to the fact that she has been a part of the process. And I don't know what was said, what wasn't said. I don't know. I haven't been a part of that conversation.
You should not
I
have
wasn't
gaveled me.
there.
You should have gaveled her. She was creating disorder in the chamber, and you allowed that because
Councilman
it
Staples,
served
may
your
I finish
purpose.
my statement?
Yes.
When I invited her forward, it was to receive her perspective of the information that had been shared at the meeting. At the time, there were accusations being made that information was purposefully not being shared with members of the city council.
What did she know about that?
She was a part of the public meetings where it was discussed.
I told her I had no issue with what the park board had done. She should have said thank you very much and sat down. Instead, she went after me.
And you badgered her. And so you were gavelled because you were disrespectful and you were
I was
uncivil.
badgering her because she had no business being up there. And
I invited her.
You should have told her to sit down.
She was being completely civil.
I disagree.
I disagree too.
I disagree.
I was going to say she apologized and resigns off the park board.
I highly
I
disagree with
did.
that.
And she said, what was she doing here? She said, I thought I would come here because everybody else is talking down here.
I would just like to note that, the reason that I provided, I know some of the council members had asked as far as how the procedure went, that was the reason for providing the cheat sheet for the Robert's Rules of Order, so if there are questions or concerns. One of the things that I discussed with Councilman Brzezinski was a simple point of order or point of privilege from you, Councilman Staples, on whether she should be talking would have been great. My problem was, you shouldn't be here, you shouldn't be here, you shouldn't be here, you shouldn't be here, and you were dialoguing back and forth like this, so for anyone to be able to get in and say, Ms. Messacar, please take a seat, would have been really difficult.
You've been very skillful at interrupting and supporting the mayor's
One
comments.
of the things that I discussed with Councilman Brzezinski and why I provided the cheat sheet was, if there is a question in the future regarding whether someone should be at the podium, a simple question of point of privilege or point of order would be a very reasonable request. So that's kind of why I provided that, and there's plenty of other different items on that sheet on procedures. So if there are questions, I'm hopeful that that will allow us to have a better understanding of how we move forward if you have something that you want to address with the council.
I know I had a comment made to me, city council has nothing to do with the park board. City council has everything to do with every department in this town because we approve the budget. It's the way it is.
The attorney has provided the process that if someone wants to ask, provide a formal written request for review, then that is the process that needs to be undertaken.
I'm sorry, that is the process that needs to be undertaken. This council has certain authority to do and take actions as it sees fit. As one would be making recommendations, one would be passing a resolution by a majority of the council and making recommendation to the mayor with regard to this as the current wanted to. So we're not going to be pigeonholed, we're not going to be contained, we're not going to be degraded, and we're not going to be told that this is the process you must follow. There's options we have to make our voice known if we have concerns about us, about being undermined. So I'm not going to play the game of the city attorney acting in a way that is adversarial towards our authority and the respect that this body deserves and will receive, as far as I'm concerned.
I provided you how a meeting is conducted, that's all. I didn't say anything about you being told what to do. This is how meetings are run under state law.
Now you're shifting it to something else. We were talking about the methodology to remove this method card. Now you're shifting it back to the Roberts rules. It's very skillful. But it also damages trust, Becca. It damages trust, for me.
I'm a little bit confused as to how you interpreted that. Can you explain that to me?
Yes, we were talking about Mezikar. And we were talking about the procedure by which that you were suggesting that this is the way you have to do this to contain us. And I was just,
well, it's not containing.
And I was simply making a point that we can make recommendations and we can do things.
Absolutely. I was just providing.
We can ask you as our attorney, which is call yourself a council attorney, say, can you draw up a resolution that makes this recommendation to the mayor?
Absolutely. And that's why I drew up the ordinance regarding the historic signs. You asked me to do it. You asked me to do it right before the meeting, and I had it completed and had it handed out to all of the council members.
We need to have the trust.
Absolutely.
That you will be helpful.
Let
me finish, please.
Sure.
We will have the trust of you that we will not sabotage a councilman because it undermines the mayor's loyal servant, perhaps, in a park board chair.
I would absolutely disagree with.
It's something that will lead a council. This has happened in previous administrations. In the Morris administration, there was some talk amongst council people. Your husband, I believe, and others perhaps, and if I misspoke, please correct it, of whether we need a council budget for an attorney that's independent of the city attorney because of concerns around the city attorney being primarily the loyal, faithful, and loyal attendant and right-hand person to the mayor. And that is a concern that I have, and that needs to be brought up publicly.
And the reason that I was addressing you was because the removal procedure is very specific, that's all. You know, Councilman Galloway had said, I want her removed, or I think that she should be removed as president or fired from the park board. I had had a previous meeting with Councilman Brzezinski about how that procedure works. I was simply providing the statute and saying that, I mean, we can discuss it all we want, but what has to happen by statute, 3610-36 says removal of members for cause. A member may be removed only for cause upon specific written charges filed against him. So I don't have a choice. I'm not suggesting this is the best route because you should follow what I want to do. This is just what state statute says. So I'm not trying to railroad or hamstring or cause you to do something that you shouldn't do. I'm simply stating unbiased opinion, looking at a state statute, what is required for us to move forward with that, and that's in support of what a councilman suggested.
And I agree that is one way you could do things. But in accordance, you could also ask.
You could ask.
That's right. Ask. Exactly. You know, just you could. It was a point like saying, "Listen, here's the things. You acted very inappropriate, very disrespectful, and set the tone that the council means nothing."
That's right.
You know, we're not saying to kick her out. We're going to ask her to resign.
And I guess
we're going to ask for an apology.
This is also the point that I think that it's important that the only communication that I had from any members of the council about this was a text from you that night saying that you wanted to talk about it, which I said I'm amenable to having that conversation. Nothing was followed up on at that point. I then received a phone call from Councilman Fettinger on Wednesday this past week saying that this was a conversation that was going on, merely alerting me to the fact that a discussion was being had. No one at any point chose to call me and say that they had an issue, that they wanted to come forward.
And I
If you knew there were complaints to the city attorney, Ms. Joe's wife met with the city attorney.
The only thing that it wasn't ever discussed, tell the mayor to ask her to resign. That's not any sort of conversation. I mean, and that's what I'm guessing that's why I can't interpret, but I think what is being said is what is the course of action. I, as the council attorney, take my job very seriously, and so I provide the information that's being requested. So I was providing, the reason that I brought it up to you was you said, I think she should resign. Now, if you're just asking for an apology, I understand that, and that's definitely something that obviously if she was here, we can talk to her about. But when it comes to the procedure for her being removed, I was simply providing what by state law it says. So, you know, if you take that as a slight, I mean, I'm simply trying to give the information that's being asked of me.
There are rules to remove her.
Correct.
That's why I asked to resign.
Yeah, and I can't do it. You know, obviously that's something that Councilman Galloway suggested, and it's put out there.
What is the action that you're looking? What is the action that we're looking for here this evening? Aside from receiving the information about how this process will work.
And she'll be told she should come in here and apologize and resign. She can't act any better than that. She does not need to be on the park board.
I mean, that was the whole nature of the civility council. That was one of the whole principles, is to resolve without conflict, and it was definitely inciting conflict in a full house. And that's as a president. And to question the fact that they wanted us to write a blank check for $2 million without questioning anything.
Well, we have
I'm not doing my job. If I would do that, I should resign as a councilman. That's right.
We have a challenge at this point because I never heard any of that. Now, apparently this happened in the back of the room, but there are different versions of the story. And so I'm struggling with what it is that I'm supposed to do at this point. That I can understand that there is a sentiment felt by some. I would encourage there to be some sort of discussion with that individual then.
I would like to know whether or not you're embarrassed by Ms. Meisenkar's actions or not.
I don't know what happened. I didn't
How about
hear
the
it.
way she came up, waltzed up here?
I invited her up here. If I didn't believe that she had a place or a statement to make, then I would have said no. She came forward to present information that had been shared at a public meeting because there were allegations of the fact that this information had not been shared in some capacity. She was coming forward to give the information that it had been shared at a public park board meeting, of which she presides over. I don't know what the conversation
think that was under contestment, so I don't know what the heck she was doing coming up here, because at that point, let me finish, please. The deliberations were between the council people.
It was under contestment because you were accusing me of not having provided this information.
And that's why I said she was coming up with an attack dog.
She was coming up as a person who participated in those conversations. I had no discussion with Nicole Messiker prior to the meeting as to how the conduct of this meeting was going to go. She came forward as the president of that body that held a public meeting.
Well, let's just say this. Mark Schreiber and Kyle from the golf course were very, very professional.
Yes, they were.
And they were deferential because they were aware of what our duties are. And so they sold us in a respectful way and told us and answered our questions. But when she came up with a mission, and it was to trash the council, and that is not going to be tolerated by me.
I don't believe that was the mission that she had at all.
Well, see, that creates a trust issue between me, the councilman, and you then, because you're basically saying that what I saw up there, and I think what you saw up there, and what you heard at the back, like I'm crazy. It didn't happen.
I don't know what happened in the back. I only know what was happening.
So you were perfectly okay with everything that happened up here that Ms. Messiker said?
Yes. What I saw happen was you badgered the park board president, and she tried to respond to your questions, and you wouldn't let her respond.
Would it be better to have a meeting with the park board president and a couple of, just try to work things out, kind of talk it through, maybe him apologizing or at least know where everybody stands?
And one thing to just be clear, just so that's not a personal, statement saying because someone's trying to defend me. Did you receive another call from someone that is related to the city? That you might sense.
I received a phone call. I received your text, and then I received a phone call from Councilman Finnegan. I received no other phone calls from anyone.
I direct that to our city attorney.
After the council meeting, was speaking to Mr. Cook, and he said something about her arm actions, but he didn't say, he couldn't hear the words. He said, similar to what Ms. McCleary said, that her arm.
Did he say that she was acting in a professional manner that would relate to disability counts?
He didn't say anything about disability counts.
I saw her jump up, down the back up. I could see her through there. It's all right, they want to keep going to park board. No respect for the park board from the city council, I'll tell you that. She shouldn't be acting that way. Like I said, we got a big thing about civility counts. She should be showing it too. Anybody that comes up here should be. That's why I made my statement.
I'm deeply troubled that someone who was your appointee mayor, you show a lack of concern to me, or to my perception is that you show a lack of concern about her behavior. Are you looking to get to the bottom of this? Are you concerned about it? Are you concerned about how three of us, perhaps, I don't know how many others feel about this?
Well, again, I've had a conversation with one member of the council, and that was with Councilman Finnegan. I had a text from Councilman Rosinski saying that he wanted to have a discussion, but no follow-up after that.
Did you consider calling him?
I mean, I did follow up with our city attorney, and she indicated that the park superintendent was going to have a conversation, and as I was waiting to hear the follow-up from that. And I know at this point in time it didn't occur.
With me or with Ms. Messiker?
With the park superintendent and with the park board president.
I think that did.
I was going to say, Mark, can we invite Mark up here? Do you have anything to say?
Thank you. Yes, after speaking with the city attorney, I did have a conversation with Ms. Mezikar. Our conversation was more to do with the allegations that Mr. Musinski and Mrs. Musinski have brought forward. She had a different version. She had maybe some things that were said by other parties. And I guess that's why this statute calls for a written allegation be given to the mayor, so that if there is to be a hearing, she would have her fair say. I don't think that might be the one thing that's missing in this conversation is Ms. Mezikar hasn't really had her opportunity to have a say of what she was thinking or what might have transpired in the back of the room. I don't know what transpired in the back of the room. I was sitting up front with Kyle, and we were surrounded by other people, so I really couldn't hear. It's not my place to give her explanation. That would be for her to do, and that's why the statute is written that way, in that you make a written complaint, it is submitted to the authority that appointed her, and then she is given her due process of a hearing where she is able to then tell her version of the situation. So again, whether what she did was paramount to cause, I can't determine that. That would probably be something that the city attorney would have to address. But yes, I did have a conversation with her, and she is aware of your concerns.
And that's why.
But I did not, you have to also understand, I work for the park board as I also work for the mayor, I work for all the citizens. But I do work directly for the park board, so it really isn't my place to demand an apology from her. That would be
But we're beyond an apology. This is too long. It's gone on for too long.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Yeah, when I received the call, my understanding was that we were all on the same page, that I would speak with the park superintendent. So if there was any misdirection as far as me speaking to the mayor, me speaking to someone else, I thought we were all on the same page, that the appropriate course was to first speak with the park superintendent and then to address the situation from there. So, again, trying to address any concerns that are brought to me with the council and do that appropriately.
At this point, I would be willing to have a conversation amongst concerned members of the council and Ms. Messicar to then try and resolve what this conflict is overall.
And I think part of my apprehension with some of the run-ins with the park department was one result, and I think it was one of the first master plans you guys put together, or the park and trail plan, when we had an issue with turning Jefferson Avenue into a one-way street. And that was a pretty comprehensive. I don't know if are you familiar with the plan? You remember?
That was put together under the previous superintendent, but I'm aware of the situation.
And it was a comprehensive.
Correct.
And at that time, attending that first park board meeting, they elected a new member to the park board. At that point,
They appointed
a new member to the park board, and he immediately voted on that, passing that plan without even reading it. So when I question the fact that they're making decisions and votes without reading information, when I hear about this $2 million maybe $1.3 million to possibly be spent on Beechwood, I just wanted to make sure that we're doing some due diligence, not just writing a blank check. And that's why I asked for the copies of that information, because if we're going to spend this money, they should have gave us this information so we knew what we were spending the $2 million on.
And that's the point where I have issue with the fact that you're unhappy that the park board president came forward to explain that this has been discussed. It's been discussed at public meetings. It's been a part of the conversations as a part of the budget planning process, that there was a period of at least 6 months that included multiple public meetings about this project on the whole. There was ample opportunity to have those conversations.
Well, then why didn't we get any information on what they were putting on there to support the $2 million?
It was at the public meetings. That information was shared there. And at any point...
This is a public meeting. When I report on
park board, I did say something wrong.
Well, then why did you not present us with the information?
Then maybe I'll start if that's what you want me to do, because believe me, when I'm at the meetings, I don't have any say in the meetings. I just sit back and I take notes and I listen to everything. They have discussions about everything. They don't say, well, this is on the agenda. Okay, let's check this out. They have discussions. They really do. And they're good meetings. And I try to bring back what I think are like the key points to everyone. And if anybody has any questions, if I bring something up in my standing committee reports, ask me. And I'll get you the information if I don't have it. But I'm trying to let you guys know in little bullet points what went on at any meeting that I attend.
This is not about the inadequacy of Councilwoman Carol Lynch. It has nothing to do with that. Let me finish. I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you. What it has to do with, and this is a request from the mayor, I'm going to make, is woo us, don't slam us. Speaking for myself, woo us when you want something, don't slam us. And you can talk about short notice, but I am tired of sometimes getting the agendas on a Friday where we got a special redevelopment commission that, oh, it's put on our agenda. I would like to have a discussion with the council right now and consider this, no decision now, whatever, about making it clear, since we are the legislators, that it is our agenda. And if we don't want something on that agenda, or we do want something on the agenda, it's up to us. And I would like to request that we have the mayor or clerk or whoever, if they want something on the agenda, that every single item that is put on that agenda, a council person is contacted. You seem very interested in making sure that that $10,000 consulting budget is not spent by me. I want to make sure that if you want something on that agenda, like that redevelopment commission bond, that you go to a council person, you say, will you sponsor this? Because I don't want anyone putting on something on the agenda that's not a council person. You took umbrage about me taking something in other business when I'm a city councilman and I have that authority, and you stick stuff on the agenda without getting approval for council people. And I understand that's been a course of dealing for the city for 4 years. So I'm not criticizing you for that specifically. But it's important that it is realized and respected that we are the legislators. And if something's going to be introduced, we get to do it. You were taking umbrage, or you denied it was umbrage. You took exception to my introducing an ordinance at the end of the last meeting 2 weeks ago. But you get to stick stuff on the agenda when you're not even authorized technically to do it.
Actually, I am.
Okay.
I preside over the council.
You preside.
As the president.
You cannot introduce an ordinance. Only a council person can introduce an ordinance. Only a council person. So I'm going to suggest that we consider the notion that to get this point through, that it's our meeting and people can't just walk up like Mezikar and with regard to ordinances, that we request and require, one, getting the agendas earlier, because we're scurrying about, we get them on Thursday. I think maybe we got the one with the redevelopment on Friday, I could be wrong, where then if there's deliberation that needs to go on, we don't have a lot of time. That this agenda needs to be, the cutoff for the agenda needs to be earlier, for one, and two, if something's going to be on that agenda, I don't want to hamstring the mayor's office, frankly, but I think it's come to a point where I want to know that there's a council person that approves that going on the agenda. A sponsor of a piece of legislation.
Can you
Unless you
understand
can
why
find-
I might feel disrespected by you, Councilman Savos? Just a little bit?
The feeling is mutual. I felt disrespected. That's what I've been talking about.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we're all
But
clear.
we're not talking about disrespect. We're talking about the law. What is the law? Do you get to introduce legislation or not?
How is it that I am supposed to woo you? I don't believe that you're supposed to woo me.
We obviously have, we're the body that passes your initiatives or doesn't pass them.
And we have
You're the leader.
vigorous
And
debate.
you're the executive, and we respect that.
And that is my role,
And you do a
to
good
bring
job.
those initiatives forward.
And you do a very good job of that.
Thank you. Then what are we discussing here if I do a good job? of
Respect for the council.
I bring the issues forward to you. I share the information as much as possible. What is it that I'm supposed to do differently other than apparently get the agendas out earlier?
It's not simply that. If you think it's simply that, then you haven't been listening.
Enlighten me. What is it that I'm supposed to do differently?
Apologize for the two things at the end of last council meeting would be a good start to show that you respect the council.
I have explained the perspective on that. I have said that I'm sorry that you interpreted them the way that you did.
Do you take exception or do you not take exception to my introducing that ordinance again in the last council meeting 2 weeks ago?
You can introduce the ordinance as I said you could.
I just asked if you take exception to it still or not.
No,
I feel better, thank you.
I didn't take exception to it at that point. I was simply pointing out the manner in which you chose to do so.
And the manner sounds like taking exception.
I think we're splitting hairs here, and we're just continuing to go.
I felt like you were trying to control me. That's how I felt at the end of the last council meeting. And I don't like being controlled with regard to prerogatives that I have as a councilman.
Much like I don't like trying to be controlled, Councilman Stamos.
And how do you feel controlled?
You're telling me that I have to woo you.
Well, the council, to a certain degree, involves having relationships, mayor and council people as individuals.
And that's a two-way street.
Of course it's a two-way street. Of course it's a two-way street.
Councilman sure would like to get something in here.
Yes, ma'am.
Please.
To change subject completely.
Thank you.
I'd just like to thank Beverly O'Saban and the Girl Scouts for inviting me again to be judged at the $500 gate fee. Oh, you guys are awesome. The wives, especially mom and the kitchen, I appreciate it. The cakes were beautiful.
Outstanding.
What kind of cake won?
They were all different categories. I got to judge special occasions.
Did you get to eat any of it?
They auctioned them off, and the money went to the Girl Scouts.
How do you know if they were really good?
Yeah.
Did you just get one pretty?
Yeah, some were pretty. I had special occasions. Some had the Disney in there, and they have other things, campfire.
Much like how I judge a car. It's pretty. It's pretty.
Myself, I would kind of like to be a little let in on some stuff that we're working on. So, we might have a chance to be a little more involved, maybe like a little more toward the beginning or something as far as the city council goes. I realize that, like redevelopment, if they got a business coming in, they can't tell you until contract signed and stuff, but maybe a little more direction where we're going or other plans that we have. You say you have 17 things going. Just a little more information maybe. Unless I always try to set a meeting with you and find out that way.
And I would be happy to do that if that's what you'd like to do, is set a meeting. That's absolutely fine.
I have concerns that when you may say it like that, got 17 different things I'm doing, that it's a stiff arm though, that you're saying you're not important and I don't care about you, and I hope that's not what you're saying.
I'm trying to help you understand.
You're trying to help me understand that feels patronizing. That feels patronizing.
What do you want me to say? I don't know how to satisfy what it is that you want here. I'm trying to explain to you that I have a number of different things that I'm trying to juggle at any one given time. And when I'm given very short time constraints to be able to respond.
We are also given short-term constraints.
We will try to get the agendas out, I don't know, by Wednesday. Is that doable?
The
You know,
council,
a lot of times,
the
it
council-
really depends on what is being put on that agenda
the council needs to decide
and
for
who it's
itself.
coming from. We get the agenda out as quickly as we can, because trust me, I don't like to put it out on a Friday, okay? But it happens. You're into budgets and maybe you haven't got everything all together because there's a lot to get together for that project. I can see where it happens that you can't get those agendas out. You know, I'm not saying there aren't times that you might not be able to get them out on Thursday. But 9 times out of 10, if it's an ordinance, you present the ordinance and then you still have at least 2 weeks
Not if it's a
to
resolution.
research.
That's going to be
Resolution
slammed through.
is a little different.
Becca, could you please research on request, please? Could you please research whether or not the council can set its own requirement by majority vote as to when the agenda is, the deadline for the agenda is, and nothing else gets put on after that unless a council person chooses to introduce it in other business?
I think the state statute says the clerk treasurer determines that. It doesn't.
Okay, well, I'd like a memo on that. The clerk treasurer determines what?
The agenda when it goes.
When it goes out.
It has to be at least 48 hours prior to the meeting because
I will actually say that we give an extended period of time compared to what is required by state.
48 hours what? 48 hours?
From the meeting.
for the meeting.
Business hours or?
Correct.
Street hours.
Well, the 40 business hours would be Thursday, wouldn't it? Not Friday?
You know, we all
I think it counts
I know,
Saturday.
I talked to some people at IACT, and they would have meetings on Mondays. They would get their agendas Monday morning.
well done, can we adjourn?
I don't have issues
Yes.
with the agendas, it's just,
Is that a motion?
That's not what we'll start.
real quick, I don't have an issue with the agendas. It's just that if we're spending money like on bond issues, we need that information that we can review. And I think that's fair to ask because that's protecting taxpayers' money. Because at the same time, they're still paying this bill on this bond. And if it wasn't needed, it wasn't needed. You know, I agree that it was. But at the same time, we're also, from what I've heard from a couple of people, we're putting a Cadillac system on a municipal course. You know, on a course that's lost, look at the books. What was $30,000? Why isn't it self-supporting? There's some questions that we have that's illogical. You know, so.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
The motion was second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Adjourned